First of all, I'm sorry for being 5 minutes late, but I finished the interviews a bit later than expected. But the interviews are important, an opportunity to do what we call Dhamma Sakacha. It's not just Dhamma Sawanang, but Dhamma Sakacha as well, in order to ask your questions, whoever's doing the teaching. And that way that I can understand if I've not taught something, or if I've taught something in a way you haven't understood. So thank you for that feedback. But for this afternoon's talk, I was already talking this morning about the first hindrance. I meant to talk about the other hindrances as well, but never got to it. And so the second hindrance, the one of ill will, the negativity. I never mentioned that hindrance. Many times people say that's part of the first hindrance, is a wanting. It's like wanting these things not to be, wanting these things to disappear, wanting to get rid of things. And that's sometimes that when you have in your meditation something and you feel that you should get much deeper than this, there's something like a thought pattern, a fantasy, or sloth and torpor, thinking about the past or thinking about the future, when you don't want that to disturb your meditation. So that becomes the hindrance of not wanting what you're experiencing. And that is quite prominent for many people. And sometimes that negativity can become very strong. And I've also mentioned throughout everything I've taught here the importance of kindfulness. So how can you be kind to something which is irritating you, such as lots and lots of mosquitoes, such as sickness, such as old age, or such as the noise of motorbikes or something else which is happening? I know that each one of you are in cottages here. In your cottage, have you got your own room, or do you have to share a room? And the people who are next door to you, do they snore? Can you not have a list and give it to Venerable Metawihari of those people who make lots of noise, the snorers, so we can ban them, at least put them in their own cottage, the snoring cottage, so they don't have to disturb you. It's so easy to get negativity. So what do you do with such negativity? One thing which you can do, that whenever someone is noisy in the cottage where you reside during this retreat, say they bang the door. Bang! What is your response? I know some people in the retreats which I teach, they start thinking about that. And they said, that's not the first time they banged the door. They're always banging the door. I was with them on another retreat in another place. They did the same things. They had really great door bangers. Ajahn Brahma, this is bad karma just to let this be. You have to do something about this. We have to stop all these door bangers. We have to at least teach them. Even thieves can go into a house and they never bang a door. Why can't sensible people, keeping 5 precepts, 8 precepts, 311 precepts, why do they have to keep banging doors? They should do much better than that. And when they told me that, I said, the door stopped banging a long time ago, but it's still resonating in your mind. That's the main noise, your reaction. And when you say something just like banging a door, you all know the bang a door, bang, and it's gone. It may be a second or even less. But the main problem is how it echoes in your brain for too long a time. So this is actually an example of what negativity is. And the main part of that negativity is the mental reactions to what you're experiencing. And the solution to it is in this story, which I did mention in brief, but never went into too much detail about. And I think it was in one of the interviews about the monster who came into the emperor's palace. That was such an important story when I first read it. I did embellish it. I say I did that. As long as you're clear, the story is based on something the Buddha said, but I made it more interesting. It's like a very wealthy, important person, like a king or a queen or an emperor, comes on one of the retreats. And when they finish and they go back to their palace, they find that this big monster came into their palace when they were away. And the monster was so big, so aggressive, so violent, that all the security who was supposed to protect the palace, they went in the cupboards, they hid under the tables, they went behind the big flower pots because they were scared. And that allowed the monster to walk right into the throne room and sit on the emperor's chair. Now that was going one step too far. So all of those guards and ministers, they came out of hiding and they went right to that monster and told him, "Get out! You don't belong here. Get out of that chair. This is our emperor's chair. You're going to be in big trouble." And they said lots of things like that. And they got out swords and they got out guns and they were threatening this monster. But every unkind word, every unkind deed, and every unkind thought, that monster just grew an inch bigger. And every unkind thought grew more violent, more angry, and more smelly. And by the time the emperor had come back, this monster was huge. And this monster was so fierce and frightening that, even apparently Steven Spielberg could not create a monster as frightening as that. And for those of you who don't, I know this, and I don't watch movies, Steven Spielberg was one of these directors who can make up these really scary movies. But anyway, he was so incredibly scary. And the smell which came off that monster was so bad that even maggots who were crawling on his skin, even those maggots threw up. They were sick. Not even maggots could stand the smell. And when the emperor saw that, the reason why he was the emperor was because he was smarter than others. He saw the situation and knew what to do immediately. He said, "Welcome, monster. Has anyone got you something to drink yet?" He said, "This is Sri Lanka. We've got some lovely tea here. What type of tea would you like? From what estate? When you have your cup of tea, do you like it strong or weak? Would you like to have some tin kiri in it? If you don't like ordinary tea, we've got peppermint tea, we've got chamomile tea. What would you like?" And this was done with such sincerity, with such real kindness, that monster just grew an inch smaller, less aggressive and less smelly. And that allowed everybody working in the palace to understand what they should have been doing from the start. Someone went up to the monster and said, "Would you like to have something to eat? Do you like some hoppers? How about some..." I've got to remember all my Sri Lankan food names now. Or what about, apparently in Bandarawela you have a Pizza Hut? Is that correct? I think Venerable Ajahn showed me this advert for Pizza Hut or something in Bandarawela. Look, we can get some pizza, because I know pizza, they do a monster-sized pizza. You're a monster, so it's suitable, so we'll order a pizza for you. And then some of the other attendants and soldiers in that palace offered the monster a foot massage. You can imagine just how big those monsters' feet are. They're huge. So they took about 10 of the soldiers for each toe. And all just down there. Oh, that's lovely. And then some gave them a neck massage. Because you imagine how big monsters' heads are. Their shoulders must get very sore. So they gave them a shoulder massage. They really looked after that monster. And every kind word, act, or thought, the monster kept on shrinking, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And by the time the pizza delivery came, that monster was so tiny that just one more act of kindness and the monster disappeared totally. Now the Buddha told the origin of that story, but the Buddha never mentioned shoulder massage or foot massage or monster pizzas. That was just my elaboration to make it a more interesting story. And the Buddha called that an anger-eating monster. And that, when I heard that, wow, I know that many even defilements, problems in your meditation, sicknesses, are anger-eating monsters. Get out of my body, you don't belong, tumor. Get out of my meditation, sloth and torpor. I didn't invite you. Don't hang around with me, restlessness. I want to watch my breathing and see nimittas. Have you ever noticed the way you react to whatever you're doing when you're meditating or anything else on this retreat here in Bandarawela? Get out of my room, mosquito. Get out of my room, snake. How about saying, welcome. Thank you for visiting me. Is there anything you need, mosquito? Especially in your mind, when something comes up, how about giving it kindness? A lot of time it works, to your great surprise, even much better than any energy or effort. Many of the defilements are anger-eating monsters. Get out of here, anger. I'm a monk. I don't invite anger. Get out. You're actually feeding it and it gets worse. So that's one of the reasons why that second hindrance of negativity, ill will, it just feeds itself. And your ill will gets worse and worse and worse over the weeks, months and years. That's one of the reasons why it sounds counterintuitive. But if you have any negativity in your meditation, you feel that it's not working. You follow these instructions for such a long time, for a whole 24 hours, and it's not working yet. Stop getting negative. Saying, sloth and torpor, welcome. Thank you for visiting me. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're welcoming it so you can understand it. Now this is not from a Buddhist text. This is from the Chinese classic, The Chinese Art of War. Know your enemy, know yourself. 1,000 battles fought, 1,000 battles won. We're not talking about war and fighting with arms or guns or missiles. We're talking about learning how to understand your mind and how to conquer defilements. Understand them first. When you really understand them, it's like saying to Mara, Mara, I know you. Then Mara has no choice. He has to leave you. Not because, as they say in America, you kick Mara's butt. You don't kick anyone's butt as a Buddhist. you get to know them, then they have to leave. And that's a wonderful thing, how to know how to get rid or overcome or get past ill will. Welcome it. Thank you for visiting me. And give ill will kindness. And then ill will, you're actually undermining it. You are turning off its power supply. And ill will just cannot last. And I did say that I'm not quite sure why, but there don't seem to be that many mosquitoes up here in Bandarawela. Is it the wrong time of year for mosquitoes? I'm not sure. But anyway, I do know how in the first year that I was a monk over in northeast Thailand, the mosquitoes were so many and they were so irritating. We had just started this monastery called Wat Ba Nana Chat. My lunch companion today went there, and I was telling him I was one of the first 6 monks there. And when we were the first 6 monks, there were no buildings at all, no hall, no toilets, no kutis. We were just staying out in the forest, which was fine. But then to get people interested in that new monastery, Ajahn Chah would come every evening to give a talk, but before he gave a talk, we would meditate for, I think it was for an hour, starting about 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., which was the dining time for the mosquitoes. This was a rainforest, and there was hundreds of mosquitoes there. And as soon as he started meditating under the trees, not in a hall, that's when the mosquitoes came out. Now there's a few things you should know about the Thai mosquitoes. First of all, they have known monks for centuries. It's inbuilt into their DNA. If you see a monk meditating in the forest, it's a very safe dinner. You see a layperson, you can get swatted straight away. You can see, if you went to Dharma, I don't know where you ate the Dharma, but if you were just watching that somebody might swat you at any time and that's the end of your life, can you really enjoy your food? So remember these mosquitoes, they saw a monk with a brown robe, bald head. It meant it was a safe dinner. So they would always swarm on you. And not only swarming on you, you see the way that monks, even more than nuns, are dressed. Bare shoulders, bare arms, bare head. You've got more seats at the dinner table for mosquitoes. And lastly, this was the first time in history that Western monks came to this part of Thailand. I remember quite a few times, once in particular, going on alms round in a remote village. I was the first white man to ever go in that village. And a white monk as well. That was really spooky, freaky for those lay people. In Thailand, the same over here in Sri Lanka, when people put rice in your bowl, they're not supposed to look at you. But in that village, they saw there was a white monk, and they were looking at me, and the rice fell outside the bowl, not in it. They weren't being mindful at all. They were just excited and surprised to see a white monk. The dogs really enjoyed it. They had lots to eat that day, but I didn't. But anyhow, imagine mosquitoes. The first time in their history they had Western food. When you have a new brand of food in the locality, it always has some popularity at first. So you may have in Colombo, years and years ago, the first time they had, say, Korean food. So it would be very, very popular. It was novel, it was new. So this was the first time that those mosquitoes had Western food, amongst which was very safe. So this is no exaggeration. Those mosquitoes, when they came out for their dinner and they saw monks and they saw white monks, oh my goodness, they all swarmed on us, never the Thai monks. And I know that because afterwards, you look at the arms of like Ajahn Chah and the Thai monks, you could see hardly any bites there. You see us, we had bump, bump, bump all over our arms. And I had a little game I played with this American monk who was sitting next to me. I ordained just a very short time before him. And we would count the mosquitoes on our arms to see who could count the most. And you usually got to about 60 or 70 at once, which was a lot of mosquitoes. And that was very irritating. And it was just endurance. When we complained to Ajahn Chah, can't we have some mosquito repellent? Or sit at another time when there's not so many mosquitoes? You know what he said to me? He said, from now on, I want you to regard the mosquitoes as your main teacher. Call them Ajahn Mosquito. I didn't appreciate that. I needed something more tangible, some repellent or something. I can rub on my skin or something to keep those mosquitoes off. He said, no, you can learn so much from those mosquitoes. And I did. I have to thank that teacher. It was unconventional, never what I expected, but something which was really useful. I had to learn from those mosquitoes. So when I meditated, instead of counting them, I decided as soon as I sat down to do my meditation with 100% focus and not to waste time. I knew I had about 5 or 10 minutes to get aware of my breathing and get that breath to be so peaceful that Piti Sukha came up. And you had to, because otherwise it was so irritating for you. And so once the Piti Sukha came up with the breath in the first 10 minutes of meditating at that time of night, I was just focused inside very happily. And I could even feel my arms. I didn't know what the mosquitoes were doing, but I said, I don't mind, you're not dangerous, you can suck as much blood as you want. But I'm just in a nice deep meditation. And that's what I did. And the strange thing was, when I came out of meditation, I think it was a 2-hour meditation. And when I came out of meditation, I noticed my arm had no bite marks at all. I thought it was really weird. Maybe these deep meditations, they do have this special psychic power protecting you from all injuries. I said, that's probably why I wasn't bitten. It was only many years later, reading about mosquitoes, and in places like Thailand and Sri Lanka, what attracts mosquitoes to you is the carbon dioxide coming out from your skin. The more carbon dioxide which comes out, the more the mosquitoes know you're there. So the more I worried and was concerned and negative about mosquitoes, the more the mosquitoes knew where I was. And that's why I got bitten so much. But once you went into some nice deep meditations, your metabolism went down. You did not secrete so much carbon dioxide. So basically you became invisible to the mosquitoes. The more you worried about them, the more you were saying, here I am, come and bite me. That's what I learned from mosquitoes. I learned how to meditate. I had to. So instead of giving these things negativity, you can always see something positive in whatever happens to you. I also mentioned earlier, but you probably didn't really pay too much attention, I never really focused on it. Even when each one of you, later on in your life, and the bhikkhunis included, sometimes you'll be asked to give talks. I remember when I was first asked to give a talk, are you scared of giving a talk? And the answer is not at all. If I give a good talk, that's wonderful. You can inspire people. That's a gift we can share with others, the gift of the Dhamma. But if I give a bad talk, that's even better. If I give a bad talk and you get so upset at it, you tell Venerable Metawihari, please don't invite that monk back ever again. Yes. And I say yes, because that means I can have a nice quiet time in my future instead of having to travel. I still can't understand, why is it you import monks from Australia to Sri Lanka? How many monks have you got in Sri Lanka? Yeah, heaps of them. You should be exporting monks to Australia, not importing them. So if it goes wrong, I'm even more happy. So you never get negative. You can always see the positive in whatever happens in life. And one of the places where I learnt this, so I could overcome all negativity, was in the north of Thailand. I mentioned this briefly before, when I spent 3 months in a monastery up in the mountains all by myself. The lay people were very happy to feed me. They weren't interested in listening to Dhamma talks, they just wanted to feed me. At that time in my life, that was perfection. And that monastery was up in the mountains, close to the border between Thailand and Burma. And it only had one road going up that mountain, and you only had one vehicle would come up once a week. That was a traffic problem. One vehicle a week. You just had to be looking in the right direction to spot it. So it's extremely quiet, very remote. And it was also right in the middle, like here, Bandarawela, right in the middle of a tea plantation. I was an English monk. This was like heaven for me. As much tea as I ever wanted to drink was offered freely in the middle of a tea plantation. You know, that was one of the reasons why I was attracted to Ajahn Chah. His name, Chah. So anyway, and another wonderful thing about that monastery, it had this beautiful cave. It was an area of limestone hills. So in that cave, it was very deep, but still good air, and very peaceful and cool. And I would go in there after the morning meal, just one meal a day in those days. After I cleaned up my bowl, I would go into the cave, take a bottle of water and a seat, and go into as deep as I could get and meditate for a few hours every day. I loved that cave. I got such beautiful memories of it. It had lots of bats in that cave. And so to this day, whenever I smell bat poo, bat feces, it brings these wonderful memories of a 3-month retreat spent up in the north of Thailand, and mostly in this beautiful cave. So to this day, bat poo is one of my favorite fragrances. It's associated with some happy times of my monastic life. But also, at the very front of that cave, just as you came out, there was a papaya tree. And that papaya tree, the papayas from that tree were at that time, and still remain so, the sweetest, most delicious papayas I've ever eaten in my life. As you know, a monk cannot ask he wants to eat this. But I noticed how far I could go. I would take one of the lay supporters. I'd say, oh, look at that beautiful papaya, it's almost getting ripe. I would never ask, but those lay supporters were clever enough to present that to me the next morning. I was the only monk there, and sometimes I would eat the whole papaya. It was just so sweet and delicious. And to this day, I recall that experience by saying, whenever you have in your meditation or your monastic life bat poo to deal with, or even better, dog poo, when you're walking down the path and because you're not mindful or whatever, you tread in dog poo, what should you do with the dog poo? Don't get negative. Don't try and scrape it off your shoes or your sandals. You must always take dog poo back home with you. And then you scrape it off under the papaya tree, under the mango tree, whatever fruit tree you've got in your temple or in your garden, scrape it off there. And you will find next year or even 6 months, your papayas, your mangoes, whatever it is you're growing there, will be sweeter and more juicier than you've ever experienced before. That's how to deal with negativity. Make use of it. Learn from it. It's great fertilizer for compassion and wisdom. So don't think, oh, why do I always tread in dog poo? You're very fortunate. Make use of it. Any negativity you experience in life, you can always make use of it. If you have a bad disease and the doctor says you haven't got long to live, is it okay to tell a joke? And you say, how long have I got to live, doctor? And the doctor says 10. 10 what? 10 years, 10 months, 10 days? And the doctor continues, 9, 8, 7, 6. That's terminal. So you can always make use of even negativity. You're all going to die one day. So isn't it wonderful now you know when that's going to be? You can make plans when the doctor tells you. And what a wonderful thing it is. You can really just let go of your body. It's like death is right in front of you. When I was sick, and I was only about 24, 25, with it was scrub typhus, and no one knew what it was. When Ajahn Chah came to visit me, I was still a very young monk at the time. And it was like a great honor to be visited by this great teacher. And he actually came to my bedside. And he looked at me and he said, Brahmawanso. That's the full name. Brahmawanso. You're either going to get better or you're going to die, but the sickness is not going to last. And then he turned around and went away. That's not what I expected by a bedside visit. I was expecting, oh, how do you feel today? Anything I can do for you? I hope it gets better quickly. He never messed around with that stuff. He said, you're either going to get better or you're going to die. And you can't argue with that, can you? So if you're going to visit any monk or nun who is really sick, that's the way you should ask them. Don't worry, you're either going to get better or you're going to die. Either way, this pain, the sickness is not going to last. Is it? You can't argue with that. It's teaching Dhamma in a beautiful way. So you don't need to have negativity, even if you've got sickness in your body. The negativity is your reaction, your emotional denial of the truth of what this body is. I mention this many times to the people in Perth. If you happen to go and see your doctor, and the doctor asks, how are you? And then if you say, I'm sick again, doctor, that's fine. But if then the doctor says, well, what's wrong with you? If you're a Buddhist, you should answer, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just sick again. There's nothing wrong with being sick. That's part of having a body. Is there anybody in this room who's never been sick ever before? If so, you'd be so weird and strange that the hospitals would want to invite you to do tests on you. How can you be a human being and never get sick? It's weird, it's strange, it can't happen. So you tell the doctors, if you go and see them, doctor, there's something right with me. I'm sick again. You know what that's doing? That's taking the emotional negative reactions away from what's a natural part of being a human being sick. You're accepting the truth. A body gets sick. A body gets old. A body dies. That's why it took my friends, the monks at Bodhinyana Monastery, to correct me. When I said I'm in my 70s now, I'm getting old. And they said to me, Ajahn Brahm, you're not getting old. And my first thought was, oh, how sweet, how kind of those monks to tell me I'm not getting old. And then one of them said, we're telling you you're not getting old, Ajahn Brahm, you're already old. Which was the truth of it. What's wrong with being old? It's a wonderful state of existence. It means you have so much experience in life. And there's many people who are very happy to help you. And hopefully in all those years you've been living, you've got some wisdom, some kindness and compassion. The one thing which I would never love to be would be like a grumpy old monk. And sometimes old people do get grumpy. That's no way to get old. Enjoy it. As I always say, I said this to someone here, I'm not as young as I used to be, but I'm not as old as I'm going to be. So I enjoy this present moment as much as I can. Make use of it as much as I can. Teach and be kind as best I can. Negativity doesn't really have any benefits to it at all. So whatever happens in my meditation, you're sitting there and you're just about to get into a deep meditation. Knock, 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 knock on the door. Ajahn Brahm, I'm sorry to disturb you. No, you're not sorry. Please be honest, I have to disturb you because I need something from you. That's fine. But imagine that was the Bodhisattva under the Bodhi tree. And somebody came and said, excuse me, I need your help. We wouldn't have no Buddha, would we? But anyway, just you no need to have any resentment or any negativity, no matter what happens in your life. If you react with negativity to anything, it means you don't understand the Dhamma. If someone does disturb you, give you a difficult time, why? A lot of times they're not doing that because they have any other choice but to do that. How can you criticize or judge anybody? Different people, different understandings, different upbringing, different conditioning. Do they really have much of a choice? I'll go more into that in another talk about the nature of the sense of self, especially what you take to be your will. That's a fascinating part of the Dhamma, but that takes a whole talk to get into it properly. Now I'm just talking about negativity. And I know that Westerners, sometimes they can know a little bit about Dhamma, but not totally. So I remember this meditator came up to me once, and they said they had problem with the hindrances, but not just any one hindrances. They said they had an attack of all the hindrances all at once. Now that's impossible. You can't have ill will and wanting at the same time. You can't have sloth and torpor and restless at the same time. But that's how they described it. A huge attack of hindrances. And I gave them the simile of how a wise person would deal powerfully with an attack of all the hindrances when you're on a meditation retreat in particular. Sometimes you're sitting here and you just can't be comfortable at all. Sometimes you're even in your room and you can't sit still. Everything just seems to be attacking you. And I usually give what I call the Nalagiri strategy. As I think all of you should know, Nalagiri was the elephant who was fed alcohol when somebody was trying to assassinate the Buddha. And it was let loose on these streets, these narrow streets, I think it was in Rajagaha, when the Buddha was walking on alms round. And so the Lord Buddha just walking calmly, mindfully on alms round in the morning. And the other direction, this wild elephant charging at the monks with the Buddha at the front. And apparently there was a lot of monks on alms round that morning. And nearly all of them, they jumped over the fences, they went in the houses, they ran for cover, and left only 2 monks to face Nalagiri the elephant. The Buddha and his faithful attendant, Ananda. Those 2 were going to face this mad, crazy elephant. And usually when I tell this story, I usually tell the story, and as many people have known me for such a long time, some of them are my disciples. And I said, if that was me in the front, and this mad elephant was charging at me, would you do what Ananda did and just go in front of the Buddha and say, let the elephant take me, I'll protect my teacher? Would any of you do that? But anyhow, Ananda went in front of the Buddha, and the Buddha just gently pushed him away. Look, I can handle this. So there was just the Lord Buddha walking quietly, mindfully, with lots of loving kindness. And in the opposite direction, this mad, crazy elephant smashing everything in his path. And they were going to meet. If ever I did get to know someone like Steven Spielberg, I would get him to do a little 5-minute movie about this. Just this huge, crazy, intoxicated elephant against a calm, powerful spiritual leader. What would win? Now, the Lord Buddha had great psychic powers. It would be one of the easiest things in the world for the Buddha to grab the elephant by the trunk, swirl the elephant 3 times around the Buddha's head, and then throw him from Rajagaha over the Ganges River, about a couple of 100 miles north. That would be simple to do for someone like the Buddha. That's not how Buddhists or monks behave, or nuns. Instead, the Buddha would have done something like loving kindness and say or think something like, Nalagiri, you can pick me up with your trunk and smash me against one of the trees if you wish. You can trample me with your heavy legs. But whatever you do to me, the door of my heart would always be open to you. Dear Nalagiri, I got loving kindness, which is unconditional. If you kill me, fine, I take away all the bad karma. Something like that. Such loving kindness is irresistible. It's a power which nothing can refuse or restrict or go against. You know the story. The ending was Nalagiri just stopped in front of the Lord Buddha, bowed his head down, so the Buddha could stroke his trunk. There, Nalagiri. There. No punishment, no kicking Nalagiri, but just being so kind and compassionate to Nalagiri. That's how compassion works, to overcome ill will and aggression and negativity. There. I don't know who the enemy of the world is today, but don't blow them up. Don't kill them or assassinate them. Give them kindness. But it has to be sincere, powerful, 100% kindness. And that's especially in your meditation. When you have ill will, the second hindrance, you get really fed up with this monk telling us what to do. He's not even Sri Lanka, he's imported from the West. What do white monks know about Buddhism? Whatever negativity you might have, that doesn't solve anything. Just have this beautiful kindness. Thank you, smiling white monk, for coming to visit us. That's all one needs. And that's the most beautiful attitude, the reaction we have, instead of fault-finding and negativity. And if you do that to this retreat, this is not the most comfortable meditation hall. Imagine what we could really do with a few $1 billion. We could make this such a comfortable carpet on this hall here. So soft, have personal air conditionings. I once thought of designing a new high-tech meditation cushion instead of these old cushions you're sitting on. These old cushions, these were designed years ago. They're so old-fashioned. Imagine having a cushion and you've got like an aircon control. So you can press one button and the back fills with air to lift up your back. If you've got one knee is very sore, another pod of air can come up to lift this one. If your right knee needs a massage, another button and it could massage it. It's all in the chair. You know, when I went in Singapore Airlines in the lounge, they have a toilet there. You don't even need to wipe your bottom. You just press a button and just water. You can get the temperature just as you like. Just squirts right into the cavity between your two buttock cheeks. You don't need to wipe anything. You just press it as long as you want, and that cleans your backside. And then you don't even need to dry it afterwards. Press another button, and nice warm air dries it. And you don't even, honestly, need to lift the toilet seat. As soon as you come near, it senses you're coming, and the toilet seat lifts up. If they can do that with toilets, why can't we do that with meditation cushions? But then, you think, no, this is missing the point. You don't solve negativity just by making things more comfortable. You solve this negativity which comes up with just kindness and compassion. This is the best which we can do right now. This is good enough. Thank you for having what we do have, a nice hall with a roof on it so we don't get wet with the rain. So we don't have fault-finding anymore. We have appreciation. I say this when any monk passes away, maybe your teacher. No need to feel sadness or grief. What a wonderful thing it was you had that teacher for so many years. Thank you. You feel delight, never negativity. If you change the way you react to life, you just can't get negative anymore. You get negative, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's good enough. And I say that as a white monk. I'm not used to the heat. When I look at some of you and you've got beanies on, I say, how can you do that? It's already really hot. I wouldn't wear a beanie in Sri Lanka, I don't think ever. because it's already hot enough. You know, I've seen sometimes people say from Sri Lanka they come to Perth, and I want to turn on the aircon to make it cooler, and they say, no, we need more blankets because they're freezing. It's the same temperature. It means you can't please everybody. It's okay, we'll keep it warm for you. So it's our reaction which we can change. We can't change the things of the world. It's always like this, even in Sri Lanka. A difficult time. But I still remember the difficult time after the Second World War. You know, my family was still on rations when I was born. And there was many bombed out buildings. You could see there was this devastation there. But people had, instead of a negative attitude, a positive attitude. They kept on working hard and built up the economy, built up the beautiful monasteries, built up the teaching of the Dhamma. I never see much point in negativity. There's always something you can do. You know, one of the great tragedies of UK was the Great Fire of London. It was in 1600 and something. And when that Great Fire of London destroyed so much of the city of London, one of the advantages of that Great Fire, the local government now had the opportunity to put in a good sewer system. All the houses were destroyed, so they could dig wherever they wanted. And that sewage system under London, built after the Great Fire, is still there and works really well. Whenever there's any difficulties, don't get angry at it. It's opportunities there. Whenever there's any dung in your life, there's opportunities to learn, to grow, to get wisdom and insight from the difficulties of your meditation. It's not a time to give in, but a time to learn more and grow more. And you get such wonderful benefits when you're meditating and it's not working. Don't get negative. Instead, say why. And you always can find a good answer. Okay. Thank you for coming, Venerable, today. Have you got an umbrella? It's raining outside. So whenever there's water and it's raining, there's always a wonderful opportunity to loan an umbrella to the Venerable to make some good karma. There's always something one can do instead of getting upset. So that's the talk this afternoon on how to deal with ill will. Be kind to it, respect it, and it disappears. You stop its cause. When that cause is not fed, the result disappears. And even if the mosquitoes are biting you, even if you feel very sick and tired, even if you get fed up, thank you for fed upness. You're teaching me a lesson, and I'm willing to learn and listen. And that way, it's no longer a hindrance for you. Thank you all for listening. And now, it is 5 o'clock now. So now is the translation time. Hope that's okay to translate this. And after the Sinhalese translation, we meet again this evening at 7 o'clock for some kind of guided meditation. We're trying to work out how to do that. So anyway, we'll see you again. I will see you again at 7.